Beneath the dark depths of the Pacific Ocean lies a haunting scene: twisted metal, shattered planes, and remnants of a war lost to the sea. This is the wreckage of USS Hornet, one of America's most legendary aircraft carriers. The same ship that launched the daring Doolittle Raid fought relentlessly at Midway and met its tragic end at the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands. For decades, her final resting place remained a mystery, a ghost story whispered among historians. But everything changed when explorers aboard RV Petrel made a chilling discovery: scorched wreckage, mangled aircraft, and eerie personal artifacts preserved in the silence of the deep. Today, the true story of USS Hornet CV-8 violent end comes to light, along with the secrets still hidden within the abyss. The USS Hornet CV-8 wasn't built to be a legend. It was a Yorktown-class aircraft carrier, the last of its kind completed before the United States was pulled into World War II. Launched on December 14, 1940, and commissioned on October 20, 1941, the Hornet was a powerful piece of naval engineering, fast, strong, and ready for battle. It measured 824 feet long, 114 feet wide, and weighed over 20,000 tons. This steel giant was built to carry nearly 90 aircraft, including SBD Dauntless dive bombers, F-4F Wildcat fighters, and TBD Devastator torpedo bombers. The USS Hornet's firepower was impressive. Her decks were lined with 8 5-inch dual-purpose guns, 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft guns, and 20mm Oerlikon cannons, forming a strong defense against enemy aircraft. With a crew of around 2,200 sailors and airmen, the Hornet was a floating city built to project American air power across the Pacific. The USS Hornet's first combat operation was something the world had never seen before. On April 18, 1942, she launched 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers from her flight deck, led by Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle. This bold mission, known as the Doolittle Raid, aimed straight at the heart of Imperial Japan. While the physical damage was minor, the psychological impact was enormous. For the first time, Japan's home islands were proven vulnerable, and the raid gave a massive boost to American morale. But for the Hornet, this was only the beginning. Just weeks later, in June 1942, the USS Hornet was thrown into the pivotal Battle of Midway. Alongside her sister carriers, Enterprise and Yorktown, she took part in a devastating ambush that shattered Japan's carrier fleet. 4 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, were sent to the bottom of the Pacific. It was a turning point in the war, shifting naval power firmly in favor of the Allies. Despite the victory at Midway, the USS Hornet's days were numbered. The brutal pace of war kept her constantly in combat, with little time for repairs or resupply, and her luck would run out just a few months later. Still, her impact on the Pacific War was undeniable. From her steel decks, American pilots launched powerful strikes that halted Japanese offensives and secured crucial footholds for the Allies. The Doolittle Raid proved America could strike back, even when the odds were grim, and Midway cemented her legacy as a key force in turning the tide of the war. The USS Hornet CV-8 was more than just a warship. She was a symbol of resilience, innovation, and unwavering determination. It was the morning of October 26, 1942. The Pacific sweltered under a blazing sun as the U.S. Navy clashed once again with the Imperial Japanese Navy in the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands. This was the 4th major aircraft carrier battle of the Pacific War, a brutal and desperate fight for control over the Solomon Islands. At around 7 a.m., the Japanese launched their first wave of aircraft, determined to destroy what was left of the American carrier force. Their primary target, USS Hornet. The assault included 20 bombers and 21 torpedo planes, escorted by 31 fighters. It was a massive aerial attack meant to overwhelm Hornet's defenses. American fighters scrambled to intercept, but the Japanese planes were relentless. Just before 9:10 a.m., the first bombers broke through. The terrifying scream of dive bombers filled the air as a 550-pound bomb ripped through Hornet's flight deck, detonating deep within the ship. The explosion tore through the hangar deck, sparking fires and killing dozens of crewmen instantly. Moments later, a second bomb slammed into Hornet's flight deck, leaving a charred, smoking crater. But the worst was yet to come. As damage control teams scrambled to fight fires and make repairs, a Japanese dive bomber, already burning from anti-aircraft fire, spiraled out of control and crashed into the ship's island structure. Its wreckage turned into a blazing inferno, sweeping through the bridge. But Hornet kept fighting. Her anti-aircraft guns roared, filling the sky with shrapnel and smoke. Yet, the relentless Japanese assault was far from over. Around 9:15 a.m., torpedo bombers swooped in low over the waves. Hornet's gunners fought desperately to drive them off, but 2 torpedoes hit their targets. The first slammed into the starboard side, flooding several engineering compartments. The second struck her port side near the bow, sending violent tremors through the ship. The damage was devastating. With her power plant crippled, Hornet was left dead in the water. The once mighty carrier now lay helpless, wrapped in thick black smoke as flames raged across her decks. Damage reports poured in. 2 torpedo hits and 3 bomb strikes had left her nearly gutted. The engine rooms were flooded, electrical power was crippled, and her ability to launch or recover aircraft was almost entirely destroyed. Years later, survivors would vividly recall the chaos and carnage of those moments. One crewman described it best. The decks were red hot. The air itself felt like fire. We were blind from smoke, choking on it as we tried to save our ship. Despite the devastation, the crew refused to give up. They scrambled to make makeshift repairs, while fire control teams fought the blazes with everything they had left. But as more enemy aircraft appeared on the horizon, it became clear. Hornet's fate was sealed. USS Northampton arrived, offering a glimmer of hope. A tow line was secured, and the crippled Hornet began moving slowly at a painful 5 knots. But the relief was short-lived. Another wave of Japanese torpedo bombers attacked. Explosions tore into Hornet's starboard side, sending shockwaves through her steel frame. The damage was catastrophic. Any progress made in restoring power was destroyed in seconds. With the Japanese surface fleet closing in fast, the order to abandon ship was given. Crew members scrambled to evacuate, jumping from the tilting decks into the rough waters below. Destroyers USS Anderson and USS Muston moved in to scuttle the stubborn carrier, firing 9 torpedoes into her sides. Most of them failed to detonate. Defying fate itself, Hornet still refused to sink. Over 400 5-inch shells were blasted into her hull, tearing apart her once proud structure. But even then, she floated, scarred, broken, but not defeated. When the Japanese destroyers Akigumo and Makigumo arrived, they delivered the final blow. 4 long-lance torpedoes were fired, their explosions ripping through the wreckage with ruthless precision. At 1:35 a.m., the USS Hornet slipped beneath the waves, lost to the dark depths of the Pacific. The Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands was a disaster for the U.S. Navy. The loss of the USS Hornet, along with 140 of her crew, was a devastating blow. Those who survived carried the haunting memory of their ship's final moments. Some recalled the eerie silence that followed the sinking, a sudden void where there had been nothing but the roar of battle. One survivor later wrote, "Watching her sink was like losing a brother. We fought so hard to keep her alive, but the sea took her anyway." The sea is a keeper of secrets. For nearly 77 years, the final resting place of the USS Hornet remained one of the deep ocean's most elusive mysteries. But in January 2019, a new chapter of exploration would finally rewrite history. The discovery of USS Hornet wasn't a stroke of luck. It was the result of meticulous planning and advanced technology. The expedition was carried out by RV Petrel, a research vessel operated by the late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen's team. Their passion for uncovering lost warships had already led to the discovery of the USS Lexington and other historic wrecks. Armed with state-of-the-art remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and side-scan sonar systems, the team set out on their ambitious mission in the frigid, crushing depths of the South Pacific. The conditions were brutal. The search area covered hundreds of square nautical miles, with the Pacific depths plunging over 5,000 meters. But the team remained relentless. Day after day, their instruments scoured the abyss, meticulously scanning the ocean floor for any trace of the lost carrier. Then, on January 21st, 2019, the sonar picked up a promising signal. The team held their breath as the ROV descended, its cameras cutting through the dark, icy waters. And then, there it was. USS Hornet lay broken on the seabed at an incredible depth of 5,300 meters, 17,388 feet. Despite decades under crushing pressure, the wreckage was remarkably well preserved. The ship was split into two main sections, the main hull and the stern, separated by nearly 1 nautical mile. The ROV's cameras revealed haunting images of twisted metal, ghostly remnants of a once mighty warship now resting in eerie silence. Parts of the flight deck remained intact, its jagged edges torn apart by the brutal battle and the torpedo strikes that sealed Hornet's fate. Faded but still recognizable, the ship's name was etched into the battered steel. It was a breathtaking yet somber sight, a relic of war frozen in time. The wreck of the USS Hornet was strikingly different from the previously discovered USS Lexington, which rested at a depth of 3,000 meters, 9,800 feet. While Lexington remained relatively intact, Hornet's condition told a story of sheer violence. The forward sections bore deep scars from bomb and torpedo strikes. Debris was scattered across the seafloor like broken bones, a grim testament to the catastrophic damage that tore her apart before she was claimed by the depths. The main hull of the USS Hornet lay mostly intact, partially buried deep in the seabed, with some sections driven down to the hangar deck. The relentless force of the ocean had left its scars, but the structure's resilience was still evident after decades of solitude. Yet, despite its surprising integrity, the hull bore the brutal scars of the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands. The midsection showed significant damage where bombs and torpedoes had struck with devastating precision. The breakpoints were clear, edges twisted and torn by explosions that ripped the mighty vessel apart. One of the most intriguing findings was the separated stern section, lying about 1 nautical mile from the main hull. This part of the wreckage was in a far more deteriorated state, partially crumpled and surrounded by a debris field of twisted metal and scattered artifacts. The separation was likely the result of the devastating final torpedo attacks. The impact had torn the stern away from the rest of the ship, leaving it as a fractured relic resting alone on the ocean floor. Despite the deterioration, some features were still recognizable. The corroded propeller shafts remained partially intact, and parts of the lower deck bore clear signs of the desperate struggle to keep the ship afloat during her final hours. Perhaps the most haunting discoveries came from the signal bridge and foretop, once the nerve centers of the USS Hornet. The signal bridge, now twisted and decayed, bore clear evidence of intense fire damage. Scorch marks from relentless Japanese aerial attacks had blackened parts of the structure, leaving behind only skeletal remains of what was once a bustling command post. The foretop, where lookouts once scanned the skies for incoming threats, was crumbling and fragile, its integrity steadily eroded by time. Its deterioration was more severe than other parts of the wreck, likely due to its exposed position and the brutal final moments of the ship. Comparing the wreckage to pre-sinking images, the devastation was striking. Once a proud and formidable aircraft carrier, the USS Hornet now lay scattered and broken. Yet, her essence endured. Even in such a ruined state, her remains spoke volumes about the brutality of the battle and the desperate courage of her crew. The most striking artifacts were the F-4F Wildcats, rugged little fighters that had been the backbone of Hornet's air group. Despite the catastrophic destruction that sent Hornet to her watery grave, several of these planes remained in a condition that was almost surreal. Their landing gear, still locked in the downward position, hinted that they were ready to launch when the final blow struck. The ROV's cameras captured faded but unmistakable U.S. markings on their fuselages, ghostly remnants of early war insignia. A white star centered in a blue circle, flanked by red dots, symbols that were changed after the Battle of Midway to avoid confusion with the Japanese rising sun. But not all aircraft on the ocean floor were American. The team made a startling discovery: twisted wreckage bearing traces of red paint, the unmistakable symbol of the Imperial Japanese flag. Though heavily corroded and damaged, experts believe the debris might be from a Japanese dive bomber or torpedo plane shot down during the furious aerial assaults on Hornet. Its presence was a grim reminder of the brutal battle fought above these waters, where American and Japanese aircraft clashed in a desperate struggle for dominance. Analysis of the wreckage suggested the plane was likely shot down during its attack run, crashing into the ocean near its intended target. Whether the pilot managed to escape the aircraft before it sank, or if it became his watery grave, remains an unanswered question. Not all aircraft discovered were as recognizable. Some were little more than twisted, charred metal scattered across the seafloor. But even in their ruined state, these scattered relics added a grim authenticity to the site. They were reminders not just of destruction, but of lives forever altered by the battle's ruthless ferocity. Among the most striking discoveries was a single shell casing, eerily positioned upright as if placed by some unseen hand. Its bronze surface, remarkably preserved, bore inscriptions still faintly readable after more than 80 years under crushing pressure. The fact that the shell casing remained in such a pristine, upright position stirred the imagination of those who viewed it. Perhaps it had fallen from the deck during the desperate battle, or perhaps it had been discarded in the chaos of the sinking. Whatever its origin, its presence was a testament to the violent struggle that had unfolded above. The deep-sea environment had not been kind to everything, however. One of the most compelling pieces of wreckage discovered was a crushed tank, its metal body warped and mangled by the overwhelming pressures of the ocean's depths. Perhaps one of the most haunting finds was a small bag, its contents spilled out across the seafloor like the memories of its owner scattered by time. Personal effects, now barely recognizable, rested in the silt. Pens, fragments of paper, perhaps even remnants of photographs or personal letters, though too far gone to be saved. Equally stirring was the discovery of a single cap, partially buried in sediment, but still unmistakable. Its fabric, though faded and degraded, remained recognizable, a relic of ordinary, everyday life on the carrier. The wreckage of the USS Hornet CV-8, resting in silence at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, is more than just a relic of war. It is a monument to the courage and sacrifice of the men who served aboard her, a testament to a time when the world was engulfed in chaos and ordinary men were called upon to do extraordinary things. If this story moved you, if it made you think, then help us continue to bring history's forgotten tales back to life. Like, comment, and subscribe to join us on more journeys into the past, because every story deserves to be told.